Oh, it's gonna come back around. It's looping back around. Oh, there we go. There we go.
I guess you chug.
That's right. Okay. Let's tell our audience what's going on.
So right.
FUMFA.
All right. So everyone who is, I know everybody is taking their time coming on into the chat, opening up Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you are watching this now and wondering what in the world was that music. Well, we have had the option here in our StreamYard to add interesting little ditties to our stream for several months, and we've been so wrapped up in planning awesome stuff for you and doing personal things that we haven't really played with it yet. But now I am really fixated on this particular little tune that we have available to us. Well, I hope you're dancing back there.
Catchy.
Yeah, none of the other ones are quite as catchy as that one. That one just feels like right for FUMFA Live. It's the evening. We're having fun. We're drinking beer.
You're rocking out.
We're rocking out. The other little tunes we have back here are not quite as exciting, not quite as fun. But, we're going to be playing a little bit more with that, trying to mix things up as we continue on. We've been doing this for 3 years and we like to mix it up. We actually have a little bit of a special format that's going to be coming at you this summer. So stay tuned to make sure that you're watching what we're doing this summer and also seeing how we're using our fun little options as well. But Chris, how was your weekend?
My weekend has been quite nice, quite lovely. Let's see, what have I done? It was, it's been raining and cold and all that, but I went to a nice benefit thing for the Westport Writers Workshop, and I know you've been running around doing poetry events here.
I was. Well, that's wonderful to hear about the Westport Writers Workshop. There is a conference coming up at the Westport Writers Workshop on May 20th, and we will both be there. And I will be moderating a panel that Chris is on. So come on down, people. It's going to be fun. And that is the day after our next Eco-Evolution open mic. And May 19th, the day of the open mic, is the day after May 18th, where there is going to be a showing of Shriver, aka A Little White Lie, up in Ridgefield. So you know what? Just make a weekend out of it, people. Just come down. I was about to tell Phil Lemos that because he signed up. He's coming down for open mic. I'm like, listen, just book a hotel and just hang out with us for days. Wow, that would be amazing.
Sure. Well,
all of you out there should too. It's gonna be a great Thursday through Saturday right there. But yes, I was doing poetry stuff this weekend. The great Sandy Carlson, poet laureate of Woodbury, created this incredible event with the Woodbury Public Library celebrating poetry. And I saw many of our stream and open mic friends there, poetry friends, Barb Jennis, Suzanne Frischkorn, a Connecticut poet laureate Antoinette Brimbell. Just amazing people were there. I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. I made a lot of new friends, made them follow us on social media. Maybe they're out there watching right now. Some of them only have email though, so we'll need to get them on our email list. I'm much quicker on the social media than on the email.
We need to get the poet laureate on here.
We do, and she was interested. So I'm excited. We'll be in touch, Antoinette.
It's great.
Yes, we'll be in touch. So that was wonderful. Then I stopped by a fabulous brewery and had a really big pretzel, and that was just amazing because it was National Pretzel Day on Wednesday, and I missed it. And I needed to fix that as soon as possible.
How big was this pretzel?
As big as my head. And the pictures are on my Instagram, people. Check it out. Bigger than my head. And I had about 2/3 of it. I got a little pretzel out, but I did have it. It was great. And yeah, New Salem Brewing Company. Very nice beers. Very nice pretzels. They also make pizzas, but I couldn't have any more carbs after the pretzel. I needed to slow down.
Oh,
And
is that in Newtown?
yes, it is.
Yes, I've been there. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, yeah, it was kind of, sort of on the way home from
Right.
Woodbury, which was a little further than I thought it was.
Yeah, Woodbury's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was lovely, it was wonderful, and then in the evening, I was partying with Sharbury. Sharbury had an awesome party, um, celebrating springtime and a belated birthday, and I got to catch up with some great people there, but we need to give our official welcome. It is 8:01. I'm just yammering over here.
Anyway.
Yes. Well, hello, mom and dad. I see mom and dad in the chat. I see some other peeps coming in, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter out there. We can't see you live, but we hope you're enjoying the show. Welcome to FUMFA number 126. Just every number over 100 is just super exciting to me. And we are really, really excited to welcome Huang and B.J. Buckley. We have been planning on both of these amazing special guest poets for actually quite a while now. And so it means a lot to us that they're here with us tonight. It's going to be amazing. But Chris, what else do we have coming up soon?
Well, all right. Next week we'll be back. That's the 7th of May, and we'll have a couple of Fairfield University MFA superstars. Well, our dear friends KJ Michike,
Woo!
Sharbury Ahmed,
Woo!
who have been recently doing our in-person open mic. And in fact, KJ will be doing a feature in next month on the 19th there. But they will be here next Sunday. KJ has, they both have brand new books out, like this month, and
Get a hold of those books, peeps.
it's going to be amazing. It's going to be fiction night, I believe. Finally.
Oh.
And then the following week we got Jack Powers and Jessica Quello, and that's on the 14th, and that's going to be an amazing night. And then the 19th, which is a Friday, we go in person.
Be there.
With KJ and Jack Powers, so we'll be seeing a lot of those guys, and then we'll also have hilarious Paul Taro, very funny comedian, and Scott Ergola playing some music.
So excited.
An old high school flame.
My high school, no, not a flame, just a friend.
I know we got Memorial Day, we're off that weekend, but and we got some amazing stuff in June, including the Fairfield Book Prize finalists will be here to read their stuff. Including this young lady right over to my right, your left.
I'm so honored and I'm so excited, and I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for all of our, friends who are also finalists. It's going to be so much fun to get to hear from these awesome manuscripts. It's going to be really, really wonderful. Hey, John Chance Acevedo out there in the chat. Good to see you.
Ooh.
Yes, really great to see you. Yeah, it's a poetry-tastic evening. Both of our special guests tonight are poets, and I had just a poetry-filled weekend. Chris, you're just surrounded by poets right now. I'm sure you feel amazing.
I'm getting used to it. It's like I don't know. Poets are nice people. I love poets.
They are. They're the best people.
It's part of the beauty of and variety of life. The spice.
That's right.
Poets bring spice.
Yes, always. Thanks, Chris. Well, we need to get started with our readings this evening. Without further ado, we are super excited to welcome our first reader of the evening, Anne Huang. Welcome, Anne.
Hi, how are you, Katie? Hi, Chris.
Hey,
Hello.
it's so wonderful to have you with us, Anne. We've been kind of planning with you for a little while now, and we're so excited to have you here. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you with your bio. En Huang is a multilingual Chinese American poet, filmmaker, and visual artist living in Newport Beach, California. Her award winning poetry has been featured in Denver Quarterly, Ruth Stone Poetry Prize, Rue Scribe, the Blue Mountain Review, the Elevation Review, Helen Lit Mag, the Florida Review, the Bookends Review, Tiny Seed Journal, The Right Launch, and Verse Rights. She is producing a limited short film series, En Huang Presents. Huang is the visual arts editor for the Newfound Org and traveling show manager for the Marin Poetry Center. You can find her work at nhuangpoetry.com and saffronsplash.com. Well, we can't wait to ask you even about all of those wonderful things in the Q&A, Anne, but we're really excited to hear you read now. So take it away.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here and I'm delighted. Thank you, Katie and Chris, for hosting tonight. This is last day of National Poetry Month, and then I'm privileged to be able to reach out people through this venue. Okay, so here I have an ensemble of 9 poems, lyrical poems, and then this is going to be my future project, White Cells. Okay, this is the mood board, and then I just want to kind of rehearse and then have an idea and feedback with some of you to see how you can tune into these poems in terms of reading and then writing. So maybe I can adjust, and then based on the feedback from tonight, I would be able to do something better on my production for the next film project. So here we go. The first one, Multiverse, after Mark Rocco's Untitled 1950-2. Someone that you had lived for then and now, dreamed of that spring of lonesome nights. There was the sky, there was the square, that was your heart, this was your face. To the moon's reflection, you were laughing quietly. That was your landscape, that was your ground. There was your blood, there was your drive. You were lured to the sun's shadow. The nights came back when moths left. There was your beloved, not your friends, someone you would never demand. Unveil this earth like a silver lining wane. Cataclysm. While the forest of violence flushes down dirt without windmill of our souls, now it reinforces our blood to sing Paradon. So my mom passed back in December 2019. Everybody remembers that time. And then it was at the blink of the war pandemic. We didn't know back in 2019, December. We were devastated, the whole family. And then I wrote this poem. I wasn't sure where I was heading until the start of the pandemic. Then it kind of made me feel um, very, very. This poem feels very special. So here we go. A scenery in colors. Won't it be thinkable to separate you from your zodiac predictions? May you be simply rising forward into your red, gold ensembles. in a red bed, somewhat close by, somehow beheld by a red golden horizon. May I be simply loving the whole of you? Is there a space now where we can understand each other better, or the emotions of our drifting away be overcome once for all? I daydream, lying facing your resembling face, and watching a red gold painted horizon. And you, lighten up without me, feeling my dreams, traveling through wherever is holy and overcast by shadows. So I graduated from about 10 years ago from Vermont College of Fine Arts. And when I was there, we had a workshop, and then one of our workshop leaders was like, they had this Uber class, master Uber class, and they were saying, you have to go into some other people's brain, other people's lives in order to do something. You have to embrace other people's lives in your own poems, so that when it becomes in basically a persona poem. And so I practiced some of the persona poems. I think that's pretty good. They went on getting published in different reviews and magazines. And then here I include a couple of them. I think that was really, really in line with my understanding of the femininity in general. Untitled 1128. 100 of them or more. You don't know how they entered your territory by your femininity during those 20 years. You gave each of them a chance to love. The early afternoons when you almost gave in. But you saw how they cared to compete against each other over real love. And the light was tall, nearby the moon star facing the calypso. Had they a lifetime of following Master Fabricius, the goldfinch, before the chain were released? You were given 24 chapters of an epic the patriarchy was immersed in, or you could do what you believed in by taking the high road. You knew the men's world somehow tried to alienate you from warm, cool shades of evenings by drinking your household drinks. Their bright smiles took on the line with eagle's wings in daylight. You watched somehow Homer missed to point out the game. Now you are retelling the aim of a secret till the end of this world. You had the domain. Partridge in a pear tree. Where the eagles flew last was in his memory. He saw their struggles of leaving the labyrinth. The summers were minutiae, minimal and black, and by September magical. He wandered and was pleased in that thought. Then the South Sea raced to lure under his wings, irresolute, yet vast to the sight, embellished by his falling cousin. That cliff he had survived from taught him a lesson of betrayal, beloved by an awestruck moon. Salt, ice, pears, tree. His forgiven acts were to make a trade. He became what his uncle envied most, possessed the wings his cousin fell hard from. As for his new being, human device and design were battles. Clever works could never replace a pair of real birds' wings or humility. Under the mooning lagoon, Athena in hindsight, Icarus and Perdix, the shades failed to draw a line. The gift. You have already known that the gift is not yours. You have solely random power, or to unite or tear down the humanity. Your flesh spouted out in mass, splitting over the red desert. You harness what you stole, everything, to be burnt under the eye of raison d'etre, everything to be kept inside the gate. Only black flames, these bones and more you have to desist, to recarve the way with what that imminent soul, when it's time to be tied up. Your rock formation, as you underlie its place, remembering whoosh in between lives. Um, when I went to MFA, when I finished my MFA, actually two of my mentors remained to be my lifetime friends after the class. And then during the pandemic, both of them passed. So that was 2019, my mom, 2020, Jane Valentine, 2020, Ralph Angel. So to pay homage to these people that I loved and then whose work I admired greatly and adored, this is the poem for them. Mount Parnassus. Today, you, a cloud, the trees, a cup of Johnny Walker, the sea without usual stillness you weep for. A woman is surrounding you. You are thrilled only for her. The sea, without its usual stillness, go to high tide from low tide. More than this, the humongous highlights of silver. You are craving that. You embrace the high tide, so calm and blissful with the droplets you endure. Ars Poetica. When the wall of darkness approaches, stay calm, then with the cradle of your heart, await the end to be warm. This is the ending point for this film project. Famuli after Sappho. The one true thing is to possess a heart. Thoughts we all have. They betray us. We owe a goddess on earth called the moon, or are rendered by her, disclosing the eyes in our mind, eyes like her own reflections in meeting Sappho. Will euphoria ever exist if not by desire? Our mothers and fathers were just like us when they grew up. Did you love your loves? Then why hurt yourself the way you did? Now I'm writing the way you do. Okay, so I published a couple of collections, but the latest collection, this is Shaft of Light, actually was recently selected as the finalist of Los Angeles Book Festival, which what came to me as a surprise. I wasn't really, you know, sending the book, but my publisher, Finishing Line Press, did the work. So I really appreciate Leah for doing this, and I'm privileged to be a finalist for this book, A Shaft of Light. It's a full collection. It came out back in 2019, right at the time when my mom was suffering from the stage 4 breast cancer. So I there are a lot of work that I've done that was beforehand, before we even knew that she had her cancer got into the stage 4. Okay, so I will I will read as we go, and then um let's see how everything goes. The words to which black and whiteness resurface. You are remembered, and not to miss, amidst flowers of living dinosaurs, topped out, the shallowest and the bravest. I will go deep under the ground to the bottom of Grand Canyon and hug you last. Metropolis, wholly and only, wrenched of familiar streams, and you, a leap from the engulfing homebound minds. Connected or not, you stay notwithstanding. With your clan, you listen to heaven's frail symphony, a legend of infused strengths, not only withstanding, but also restraining. Prague, you are normally running behind your schedule, the way you dance when we normally have 2, 8, 80 people ahead, a spectacle, a vision, a calligraphy done in brushstrokes. Next to a furnace, the mountain as it shows hard on the strata dock, as if you could only care less. And where you are normally running to will change the way you dance and tend to be asked to quiet down for what will be entailed. Workdays. The best of many workdays are those given to yours in excitement, the universal adversaries of our destiny when the half sky of thoughts undermines, the unhappy nights clouded by their open mic, the slow pains that in the light pulse like drops from the sea, slow passions that contain mists drinking up life every time thunder comes. Black as the shadow of a motorcycle ride, gray as a tree leaf that soaks in water, purple as the purest dates in a milkshake. Those fleeting facts are of a distinctive life, of a distraught mind you unleashed, but also a reflection of our style. Still life. Some nights you came through thrilling dreams, asserting that we had gone through a life of seeing the old world, which is both running out and alternating still. Like a mountain, when he hugged her back, the snow drifted and the gray pastures closed down the rosebuds. He, in the crossroad, in a jean overall, smiled with the sun above his shoulders as the warmth oozed and ran from snow through sky. Happiness enlarged her pupils. Her lungs encountered the blissful wind as the snow appeared like a mountain, humongous. Moonstone. The moon elevates her eyebrows under dew, a nocturnal adoration which undermines the surplus of mists in man's impulses. Then the goddess submits to herself, amusing the moon's shiny reflection. The goddess is a deity that prefers to submit to her nymph-like livelihood a beautiful creation of moonstone in fog. Autumn expressions. Autumn, a melancholy in the rosebud without purity, the dark meteors on your face. May you shy away from my plight and fancy, the complete solemnity of my kindling. A jogger, followed by impulse and reason, heavenly naked, you come to night's independence. Many lethal hours that workout will take. No bright hours to run adrift. Autumn, with and without. Hard mushroom. Rough funguses do protrude the surface. Heavenly east of vegetation. Vertical exotic strokes. Omnipotent. Tails protruding. Hard sweet in front of your courtyard shades. Roughly standing before campers. Drafting matter. Nudge fruit. Center point. Bluff rock rolled rather up. Devil-ish of gray, many handsome fruits turned soiled. Your brown spots smitten under fire. The previous one, tighter, plucked on, or for many years you have been an entertainer, a start, a journey, the means provided for warmth and illumination. And when you know a republic, a fake empire vanishes. Unaware. Swiftly the sun is drowning in the turquoise mist, diverting himself into his own silver lap, and then diffusing black and robust, and you in awe know the ocean inside you, a man you did see you wanted. And here he comes, and his loving facade envelopes your soul. You chase him up in the valley, alluring him to stay inclined. The show, bright, the rocks of fire, without the shimmer of surrounding darkness. Now you, pursued by a midnight sun, without the words of the beloved. Flame, the ooze of atoms, secular, light without seasons, and a reckoning of nurses run, without the protest that some might see. A shadow, your door's shade, hard, flattering to its circle of green. You find the arc of civility and still make deals with our banal wings. I see, young fellow, now lower your ego and pray. That's more than the lure of joy. The waters and streets are made.
And
Yes.
one more.
Okay.
Since you wanted a warning, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, perfect. No, that I needed to. Okay, one more. Last one. It's the midnight sun. The shadow nudges you. You are soothed. A full flower lies on the dirt road. You rejoice. A hard rain soaks the petal cups. Your feelings are cared for like the rose petals. Your feelings hold you. You love their temperaments. You are whole in their river. You are whole as the glowing corona. The glowing corona is held in the vase, the leaves upright in air, the flower cups suspended above their nourishing dirt, flattened out on the hillside.
Woo!
Thank
And
you.
Hi. And just the most lovely, lyrical, tender poems. We have so many lovely, crisp images in nature, these beautifully crystallized images of people in these tender moments, these memories of these different individuals, just really, really lovely and tender work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Katie. It's beautiful. I'm sorry that I missed that.
No, you didn't miss.
Alert.
No, you
Yeah,
didn't
I
miss
was too
anything.
consumed in these things because it's the first time that I read this in 2 years. I think I read it during my VCFA days, and then I just let that book, on its own. I wasn't paying too much attention, but because of my mom's passing and all these mentors, passing, it's horrendous when you lost someone that you loved and also you admired, especially.
Yes.
Yes.
So I left that book for a while, and when it's just recently I got this finalist award, and I'm like, great, I'm going to read these poems. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity. I really
Oh
appreciate
my
it.
gosh. And we were just so like enraptured by them. They're so lovely and so tender, and congratulations on on this honor. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you'll be able to read a lot more from this book, with these different opportunities. And so glad that we had the opportunity to get to hear you read from it tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And then my actually sixth film project has been chosen to be officially screened in LA Film Fest.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh,
Yeah,
I'm so
at the last week of
excited.
May. But we're still waiting for them to say, okay, are we winning the category or not? Because we're in the experimental art category,
So cool.
experimental film or art film. So I cross the fingers. Let's hope the best.
Yes,
Let's
absolutely.
hope the best. And then yeah, and then so if we will get an official screening for sure. But then the winner, if we get to win that, then we will have like, we will bring our own wine and we'll have a party there with all the crew. Yeah, we are all artists here, all with all friends and family members. So we are delighted. So thank you.
That is
good.
so cool. And well, we'll have to talk about this more in the chat and our Q&A as
Right.
well.
That's right. Everybody stick around and get your questions ready for Anne, and we'll talk about those later.
Thank you so much once again, Anne.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we're going to see Anne again in the Q&A. So many great questions to ask. So many wonderful things happening for Anne. And Chris, wasn't that just like, we'd had such a rainy, cold weekend, and it was just so like such a meditation to get to hear these lovely poems, these lovely images, these memories. And certainly we've had our own losses in these last few years as well. Just really lovely work, right?
Absolutely. And the silver lining in all these losses is that we get these beautiful poems that wouldn't exist otherwise. Maybe it's
Right.
it's not the best compensation, but
No.
it helps.
No, but we can certainly relate, and and then kind of share in our memories, and in how we're kind of handling that grief and moving forward, and memorializing these people who are so precious to us, especially now when we can like actually get together and do that physically in person.
When
And
I
online
go,
still, but in person more
when I
important.
go, I want a poem. That's a tremendous tribute. No, it's like
It is. Well, first of all, Chris, you're gonna live forever, but
Well, yes, of course, that's true. But it's just you think, wow, if somebody would write a poem, inspired by
yeah.
whatever, that's a beautiful tribute. So
It is a beautiful tribute. It really, really is, Chris. Well, you can count on that from me, but you're gonna live forever, so maybe
well,
we'll
that's,
the great epic of Chris Belden while you're still here with us. I need to get writing, Chris.
that's true. I want to hear them while I'm here. So I think there's a contest next week. Send in your poem. Ode to Chris. And,
Oh, to Chris Belden.
all right.
All right. We need to get to our second
No.
amazing special guest poet of the evening, BJ Buckley. Welcome, BJ.
Hey, from the beautiful state of Montana.
Yes, we've got people from we got a west coast, western part of the United States coming in. We're loving it. And BJ, you have we another situation where we have planned for quite a while to have you on here, and it's really such an honor that you're with us tonight. Chris, would you do the honor of sharing BJ's bio?
It would be my privilege. B.J. Buckley is a Montana poet and writer who has worked as a teaching artist in arts in schools and communities programs throughout the West and Midwest for more than 4 decades. Her recent work has appeared in all kinds of publications, including About Place Journal, Ellipsis, Dogwood, Grub Street, Whitefish Review, and many, many more. BJ has received a number of national prizes and awards for her poems. Her latest book is Corvidae, Poems of Ravens, Crows, and Magpies from Lummox Press in 2014. And her new chapbook, called In January, the Geese, won the Comstock Review's 35th Anniversary 2021 Poetry Chapbook Prize. BJ lives in rural central Montana, beer barley country.
Awesome.
Her dog and her kitty cats. And BJ, take it away.
Hi, very nice to be here. Thank you for having me. So I thought what I would try and do is take you to Wyoming and Montana, which are the two places where I've spent most of my life in several seasons of the year. And we've had quite a hard winter. And once the frost leaves the ground heaves up. And because there's less pavement in the area where I live, the things that got covered up by the ground come up again. And this is the first poem in the new little chapbook, which looks like this. It has wonderful cover art by my friend Dawn Senior Trask, who has done illustrations for all my books. I'm so lucky. So this poem is called Upthrust. Frost heaves itself from the ground. Everything buried begins its slow swim to the surface. Fields sprout stones, small hills of barbed wire and baling twine lift overnight from plowed furrows. Borrow ditches bloom blown tires, an engine block, child's wagon. Deep in coulees where the dead have long buried the dead, mare with her colt caught breech half-born, gut-shot deer, lost lamb. The soft earth that swallowed them opens its mouth, spits back their bones like pearls. It's always fun to read second because it gives me the opportunity to change my mind about 8 times about what I'm going to read, but also to respond a little bit to the poems that Anne read. And I too like persona poems. And let me see here. I stole the name for this poem from the lovely old lady who was my landlord during one of my summer college jobs. And her name was Huang B.J. And so I stole her for this. And the poem is an epistolary poem. It's in the form of a letter. Letter. Huang B.J. to her husband Tors, August 1914. Hails outside, killing the corn, breaking the stalks half-mast and the leaves all rags and tatters like worn-out flags. Them bending sideways like that and the weird color they are in the stormlight reminds me of them yellow-green Japanese kites Ms. McMurtry tied to her porch posts. And if you was careful of her roses and calendulas, you could walk right up and set in the wicker. Have lemonade and conversation, she used to call it. Watch those flags blow every which way. I should be crying over that corn, but I don't feel destroyed at all. How can I, memories like that? We used to pick hailstones after a storm, called them snowman eggs. And once Lila made a nest for him behind the barn, tried to get a hen to set on it. Disappeared, of course, the eggs and the hen. It rained and hailed like this the year you courted me, and there's things I still remember, like the mud clear into August, and how Baldry's stallion got bogged in it off the carriage road, lost his spirit. I was coming up towards town and I saw it, how you got down and put your body near under that horse, lift him out. I was so proud of you then I could have spit, but it weren't ladylike. I tell you today, if I could walk outside right now and see you again as you was, slicked to the skin with mud and heaving that horse up out of that hole, I'd spit anyway, and ladylike be damned. For about 20 years, I lived halfway between Sheridan and Gillette, Wyoming. I'm a Wyoming native. I was born in Cheyenne. And after my undergraduate college was finished, I moved up to the 7 Up Ranch. And I actually lived in the house that the rancher's father and his wife had lived in when they were first married, old balloon-built railway section house. And my rent was to say yes whenever anybody asked me to do anything. And so there were quite a cast of characters up there, the hired people who went through, and various kinds of animals, weather, lots of weather. So one of the things that you did up there, it was 25,000 acres, and we lambed out, which means very out, usually in February when it was snowing. And this poem is called Lambing Hard Cold Front, mid-April. 48 frigid hours in a row, lambs fall bloody into wet fog and snow, twins, triplets, fast one on another, 100 ewes bleeding, mounds of afterbirth, earth churned to mud, dogs nervous and circling. Coyotes are out there, silent, waiting, and how quick we must be to sort out the dead, skin them to cover with sad, bloody shirts the rejects whose mothers nose them away. We shove the imposters towards grieving ewes, crooning, here, here, here's your sweet one. Our jeans frozen dark and wet to our thighs, and our hands red ice, and the tired sheep tonguing wet lumps of wool till they wobble and stand to nurse. That was the winter of 1984, and we had another one just like that. So we all lambed and calved in the nasty weather this year, which started about Halloween and finally let up last Tuesday. I really have enjoyed the last couple of years going back to the journals and notes that I took during my years on the ranch, and memories, things that happened, people I met. And so I've been into a 2 or 3 year long stint now, writing poems, sort of immortalizing many of the people that I was lucky enough to work with there. And also some of the people that I'm lucky to know here. That was ranch country, and I live right now in farm country. I live up on Fairfield Bench, and the barley that goes into Coors and Budweiser beers gets grown up here and in the part north of us, which is known as the Golden Triangle: wheat, barley, lentils, agricultural. And people have cattle, people have sheep. This poem is called Apotropaic. And it's sort of a thing that you do to prevent evil. Our neighbors are hanging dead ravens on their fences, upside down, their wings outspread, because soon lambs will fall from the wombs of their mothers, and a pair of ravens has made a nest high on the cell phone tower where the road S curves along the pasture, turning towards the birthing paddock. Mud, blood, afterbirth, that lanolin milky reek of spring. Ravens are omnivores, are smart, are lazy, will lurk close in hope of delicacies, fall like dark angels upon the innocent newborns, peck out their eyes first, then the severed umbilical, feast on placenta, rip the distended, blood-gorged vulvae of the ewes. It is what they are. Ravening, ravished, as in rape, as in insatiable, they gave us those words. They will split bellies with razoring beaks and string out intestines like triumphant ribbons. They are without mercy, as is the God who made them, who made us too, if you believe. The ravens come from the Game and Fish and the Farm Bureau, who essentially keep dead crows and ravens in freezers for lambing season for people who lamb out in areas that are close to those admirable predatory birds. Let me read you one about one of the most interesting people. His name was Swede Granström. He was one of the he was one of the hands that I was lucky enough to know. He was a horse whisperer before that became a popular book. He was the real deal, Swede was. This poem's called Whisperer. Machine gun rain, drops steel hard and cold that ricocheted like bullets. Bitumen smell as they pocked the asphalt. And all 6.5 skinny feet of Swede Granström were stretched, soaking wet, crossed the double yellow lines, next to the stallion spilled from the wrecked trailer in the pitch dark. And he was singing Brahms' lullaby in a voice so clear and pure the angels wept. Driver was dead. Pickup flipped and airborne over the barbed wire fence and rolled so many times it was flat, and the driver under it. And Clay had gone along the highway to try and get flares lit in the downpour. And I was standing over Swede and the poor broken horse. Both back legs snapped. It was crazed when we got there, that horse, screaming and biting and struggling to rise, beyond dangerous. Swede had got out of our truck, unracked the rifle, handed it to me, cooing and clicking his tongue and humming the music. And he sat down next to those flying hooves and laid himself down, put one hand on the stallion's neck and said, "Easy, easy." That horse made one last anguished twist and was still, breath rasping like torn paper. Swede sang to it as if it was his own sweet child afraid of the dark. Swede sang, waved me over, mouthed, "Here," pointed his finger just below its soft, delicate ear, said, "Now." Here's another Swede poem for you. There are wild horses in various places in Montana and Wyoming, and there are too many of them for the range conditions, and it's a very difficult proposition trying to figure out how to save the range, how to save the horses. And one of the things they do in various places, and they did in Wyoming, is they have a roundup, and then they're sold to people who promise not to send them away for dog food. So one year, the guy who owned our ranch went down and bought a whole bunch of them. And then you get them all up here and you have to figure out which ones you can actually do something with. And Swede was the guy who was in charge of that. This poem's called Picking Out. Owner had bought a bunch of Mustangs to keep them from going to Canada for dog food. strange colored and beautiful and crazy wild. And he called Swede to sort them, to figure which ones would make cutting stock or be good for packing and trailing, or only just worth letting loose across his 25,000 acres to run and stay untrammeled and maybe breed some good ones down the road. We'd corralled him, and Darl and I was sitting on the fence and watching Swede work, though work was probably a misnomer. Swede had a gorgeous Morgan quarter horse cross, and he ran her with his knees, and by shifting his weight so subtle you had to know him and the horse both to catch it. And he was just riding her in amongst the wild bunch, making sweet noises under his breath, and in half an hour he'd been next to every one of them. And then he started cutting them out, the ones he wanted, heading them over to the side and through the wide alley he'd built to the east, and Clay was opening and closing it to let him in and keep him. It was like a dance. Darl said to me a man like Swede had a kind of poetry in his blood, just beyond reach and one step past memory, like he was born knowing all the beats and rhythms, where the line breaks or not, the rhymes, the tune of the language, until you have it, have the music. And then you never need the words again. You don't need words for anything at all. And he was right. Swede was master of the nod, the raised eyebrow, the wink, pointed with his chin or his lips like the Navajo and Lakota, leaned one way or another in the saddle, widened his eyes or squinted, hummed music under his breath that was so eloquent of both the current situation and the state of our souls that Darl said God could learn a thing or two if he was paying attention. Not that Darl believed in God, but we all damn sure believed in Swede. If you live in Montana and Wyoming, you go fishing. From the time you're a little person, whether you're a city person generally or a little town person or a country person, almost everybody goes fishing at some point in their lives. And near where I live now, I live in an area where a number of rivers come together before they join the Missouri. So one of those is the Sun River. And if you walk to the edge of the bench about half a mile from my house and walk down, you end up in that drainage, and the bears come up there when they wake up and along in the woods. And we are near the Teton River, but this is Sun River, and there were a couple of old guys I used to see all the time fishing there. So this one's called at Sun River. Late afternoon, the air hard enough that every breath is an icy cloud. The water a burning, bone ache cold. But the two old men cleaning their catch are barehanded, slipping trout one by one from the stringer, their knives quick and sure as they slit shining bellies from anus to jaw and thumb out the guts back into the water, the gills bright red, quick rinse of pale flesh in the silver current, then a bed of damp grass in the creel. Their knives are antique, a father's, an uncle's, blades polished and sharp, worn narrow with years. The river this April still smells of winter, of leaf rot and fish blood, of the faltering bodies of two old men spending out hours as the day's light is spent, as dusk spills purple and deep from the trees. They walk up the muddy slope of the bank to the granite boulder, the fallen pine, all of them silvered and rough with age. Plaid wool jackets sparkling with scales, and they sit and they smoke. Their shadows are married to shadows of pine, their silence the quiet of long contentment. Lichen quilt stone with a gold gray patchwork, moss greener than green coats the north sides of trees. Tobacco perfumes the air. Too cold for a hatch, no stonefly or caddis or mayfly or midge, but soon, soon, Cold this fast river, window clear, smoothing bright stones that litter the bottom, purling, chuckling. The old men nod. There's a fish in the deep hole under the cut bank they both remember, who tested their lures and slipped every hook. They agree they'd like to see her again, emerge from the dark with her eyes small moons, to shrug her green shoulders, sink back like a stone. Near dark, they pick up their bamboo rods, each of them older than the men who wield them. They stub out their pipes and pick up the creel. The truck is parked half a mile down the road. Both of their wives are gone, are ashes, scattered one summer into the stream. So grizzly bears have been in the news a lot here in the West, and some of it has even made the national news a time or two. And the boars are up. It's been a long, cold winter. The snow is 130 inches deep up in the Tetons in the northern corner of Wyoming. Up until a week ago, it was 6 feet deep in my yard. So the moms and babies aren't up yet for the most part. But by summer they are, and this was a bear memory. There's a gentleman named Doug Peacock who is an old friend and a wonderful writer, and he's the Bear Whisperer, has a couple of wonderful books which you should look up. But this is called Once in Late July, poem for Doug Peacock. Chickadees calling out their libidinal tune, hey baby, chickadee dee dee. In the scorched red surrender of the day, gusts of pollen, soft yellow, smoke sweet, swirl of insects, wing storm, drone song, and the heads of the grasses bowed beneath a palpable weight of merciless heat. Tide shimmer over Timothy, bunchgrass, sandfoin, bees in unbroken waves of blossom. And the bear stood, her mouth dripping chokecherry, and I hadn't seen her. And I was too close, and her cub was too near. And I was lost in a deaf, indifferent sea of joy. This is a little poem about a fox. We've had the foxes come up closer to your place generally in the spring, because if they're out denning out too far, the coyotes will find them and kill them and their babies. So they come in closer. And there's one in the coulee behind the house that's had a den for several years now. And I saw her last autumn at the very end of the summer. This one's called Vixen Song. Fox haunted fields, autumn, the leaves red ghosts, blood, hunt stain, bright hunger, that low slunk undulation through fading grasses, slick slither in and out of cattails in the borrow ditches, fur flash, death's soft frame. Mouse, vole, pocket gopher, pheasant chick, bug and beetle, sweetest berries bears forgot to pick, fallen apples and their worms, the fields waste, trampled barley, broken corn, seed from sunflowers drying on their stems, nothing spurned. At last light, foxing on a page of heavy frost, straight quick line, her tracks. She passed so close, incendiary, and her wild breath burned. So, one more? Let's do a short one here.
Yes, that's perfect. One more, BJ.
All right. This one's a little sonnet and couplets called Turning. Don't the years seem to pass in moments, the months in hours? This morning was September, noon, October, late afternoon, the first wet, heavy snow that was rain first, slick and silver weighted in the needles of pine. November then, fat flakes, cold thistledown flocking the bare branches, kaleidoscopic in a whirl of wind, dizzying as highways blackened with ice and the evening sweatered itself in the wool of clouds. All of us shivered in the dusk and dark, winter whispering, though it isn't yet, only latest autumn, slippery and spectral, baffled by wings. Woodpecker, finch and raven, nuthatch, crow, flurries of chickadee, dun pools of sparrow, and the wild geese whose choral colloquy aligns the star-cracked compass of the sky. Thank you.
BJ! Oh my God. BJ, I could listen forever. This is like so different from my world out here in the small city of Norwalk, Connecticut, about an hour from Manhattan. I'm like, I'm out there with the lambs. I'm scared of the bears. I want to hang out with Sweet and learn all of his secrets.
Right?
I mean, it's just really incredibly vivid and powerful and moving poems, BJ. And you brought us to, your world, to your memories, to your part of the United States, which is so different from what I've, experienced here in the Northeast. Just fascinating and gorgeous.
Thank you.
Oh, it's so true. It's like the best, fiction, movies where that take place in that part of the world is just so vivid, and I mean all the critters and the weather, and I mean you really put us there. It's great.
And yes, and we can really hear and feel like your affection for it, and your place in this, and we can see and feel these characters. That was such a powerful and really, really beautiful experience. And even in our planning to get you on this show, just kind of experiencing some aspects of the region itself, just not having Wi-Fi out where you are. You're at the library right now. You set this up. You made it happen. And I think it was so powerful that you started also with kind of the heaving up of the ground and what that
Yeah.
brings up. And I was just like, whoa, I'm ready for this reading.
Yeah.
So cool, BJ. Well, I'm sure that our audience will have plenty of questions. So please, lovely audience, get your questions in the chat for Anne Huang and BJ Buckley. We're going to move into our Q&A. Let's just give a round of applause once again for Anne Huang and BJ Buckley. Awesome readings, both of you. And we always love to comment on how there are just serendipitous similarities between our two readers for the evening, and both of you have so much of this beautiful lyrical imagery that is so tender and so poignant, a little bit painful, speaking to these powerful memories and these precious people. It was kind of beautiful to see, though the poems, of course, were so different, the way in which they kind of interacted with each other. And BJ, that was cool that you kind of rearranged a little bit to kind of, speak to what to Anne was writing as well. And
Right.
It was awesome.
Right. That is the advantage of going second, right? Especially when you're a poet and you have, different choices that you can make. So great. And this idea of the persona poetry too. We're going to get to that in a second as well, because I have a question about that.
Well, we have our famous first question that we need to ask the both of you. Chris, take it away.
Of course, we'll start with Anne, then we'll go over to BJ. Very simple question, and which is, how has poetry and being a poet changed your life?
Huge.
That's a great question. It's instilled in me something renewing. At the time I picked up the poetry, that's when I had a personal loss.
Mm.
I had a miscarriage.
Mm.
So it was a very unusual for me to go through this, because we have a very strong tradition, of carrying on with the procreation,
Mhm.
in Chinese American families. So it was not only intimate sadness, but also social, or I would say familial, kind
Mm.
of pressure on me.
Mm.
So I was turning into poetry at the point when I read. I went to AWP, American Writers Programs, and writing programs and writers programs. I saw, I read Jean Valentine when she was in Denver. That was back in 20, I believe, 10. She was in that room of it's only her word against like 200 some people there in a big, yeah, it's outrageous, but it was so quiet. And I went there. I was there, and then she started to read about unpacking a luggage of hers,
Mm.
basically unpacking everything, the baggage of her marriage and everything, her relationship. And then I was just it just my tears. I couldn't even, it's so overwhelming. I was like joyous, and at the same time I was like having this moment of like, yes,
That's what it
wow.
feels like. You
Yeah, and
captured
that's
it.
how and then I at that moment I was like, this is for me. I
Yes.
needed to get into
Wow.
poetry. And then I went straight from there. I went straight to Jean Valentine after the reading. I wanted to learn with you. I want to get into the workshop. I submitted. And then from there on, she recommended me to go into the MFA. I had a couple of MFA programs accepting me, and I chose the best one. I thought, Vermont,
Mhm.
like Montana and Wyoming that BJ was talking about. It was just gorgeous experience. And then, well, in few words, I'm making it very long, but long story short, poetry is part of my life. I
Mm.
would not be able to be like today's me and Huang, talking to you all with this certainty and with this confidence as a woman, as
Right.
a poet, even as an experimental filmmaker. I would not be at this point without the strengths and then the solidarity and then this inclusiveness that poetry has given me. Because it's not only me writing and reading poetry, but also so many others that is sharing their good writing mojo with me, in the
Woo!
good and bad times. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you experience, but we always share this
That's right.
commonality of love, loss, and then everything else, all the feelings. So it's, to me, it's the highlight of my life. I would not be able to trade poetry to anything else. So
And
yeah.
that's
So
awesome. That is so beautiful. And I can really relate to that. I'm sure BJ can as well, that it's this way to crystallize and to express and to connect with other people. And through that you have this incredible community, and it's just so life-giving. That's so beautiful to hear, Anne.
BJ, how about you?
Well, I have to tell Anne, I was in that same room in 2010 listening to Jean Valentine. I was there in Denver. AWP is
no
never in the
way.
West.
Yes,
Yes,
you were
yes.
there
I was there. I was there.
in that room.
But it's
But
never in the West, So
oh,
Denver
wow. How come that
it
we
was the
didn't?
I don't. There were 200 people. It was because there were 200 people.
Oh, that's so
But yes, Yes,
This is
this is
awesome.
funny. It is awesome.
It's
It is
beautiful.
very awesome.
Good connection.
So, how has it changed my life? Well, I am. My father was an Irish immigrant. He came over from Limerick in 1920 when he was 19 or 20 years old,
Mm.
and had his accent till the day he died. And
Wow.
he was the Irish are poets, they're storytellers, and he was indeed. And he sang and he read poetry, and my mother, although she had a business education, had always loved poetry, and that was part of our regular childhood life. Best loved poems of the American people, you all had
Yes.
in your house. Yeah. And so I continued, although it was always as elective, to take English and writing courses all the way through college. And I was a science and math geek for a long time. I was a pre-med major. And about the time it got to go to grad school, I found out that I guess on it. I don't know how old Anne is. I'm 70. But that time, the writing programs were just starting. And I looked at what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I withdrew all my applications to medical school, and I went to Boston University. I
Oh
said,
my
I want
God.
to write poetry. I don't want to work at anything that isn't associated with literature, and I don't want to be an academic, which
Right.
was an odd combination, because I enjoy teaching very much. But if you get into that college thing, then they get to tell you where to go, and I wasn't going to be there. I was going back to Wyoming and Montana, and so that there were some interesting challenges there. It meant I was never going to have very much money. It meant I probably couldn't afford to have kids. It meant no one was going to live in the middle of nowhere with me, although I've been very lucky finding people to live in the middle of nowhere with me. And I started doing the arts and schools, poetry in the schools program in Wyoming in the late 70s, after I graduated from college, when it had just started there. And Charles Lewandowski, who was published by Wesleyan University Press, so you might still find him, was in Wyoming at the time.
Wow.
And the Endowment for the Arts started giving money to state arts councils for poetry in the schools. And
Nice.
if not for the pandemic, this would have been my 50th year.
Oh.
My job, I haven't had residencies for the past 3 years, because
Mm.
first the schools were closed, and now the poor kids are so far behind, the teachers are just going, I don't know. Yeah, it's worse in the West almost, because the kids are never quite up to it out here in the rural areas anyway. But
Wow.
anyway, so it wasn't so much I'm still a science geek. I'm one of those people who walks through the thing and knows the common names and the Latin names and the who named them and why, and enjoy it very much. A lot of the natural world has stayed in the poetry.
That's great.
So yeah. So it was an about face, but I have never regretted it for a minute.
BJ, that is such an awesome story. Both of you are coming at us with these incredible stories tonight. BJ, that is just like a life of poetry. And you said, okay, you know what? This means, XYZ about my life, but I'm doing it. I know exactly what I want. And I think that's absolutely incredible. And I think we can still, COVID schmovid, like we can still celebrate your 50th year. That's an incredible accomplishment. That's awesome. That's really amazing that you were doing the poetry in the schools for that long. That's really, really incredible. And you've published so much, and you've been able to share so much, and what a pleasure to get to know you and hear your story.
Yeah. And how great to do it out there too. I mean, we don't even get poetry in schools here. It's just like not enough poetry.
No, we need more. We definitely, we
Everywhere.
really do. We really do. And if I saw Sandy Carlson out there in the audience, and she's doing so much up in Woodbury. We were talking yesterday at the Celebrating Poetry event, and everything that you can do to remind people, hey, writing is special. Writing is important. Read poetry. Get to know poets. Participate in this. It's not, it's not some special secret world that you can enter and participate in and really benefit so much from. And I think both of you have spoken to that as well, how much poetry means to you. All right. Well, I have questions. Audience, get those questions that you have in the chat. But I'm really curious about how both of you got to publishing. How did you come from these incredible moments of like, yes, I must write, poetry is really important to me, and how did you start building like a first manuscript? And did that happen in in your MFA program, or were you writing a lot before that?
Yeah, actually, yes, both ways. Well, I was writing before I went into MFA, right after the encounter with the Jean, and then we workshopped with her. We had 20 people in her workshop in 92Y Poetry Center, if you all know, and she was teaching on the side. She was such a generous teacher, a workshop leader, a mentor. And then so I was writing, and I put together a chapbook at the time called Love Rhythms. It was just like, the chapbook is small, only 20 to 25 poems. At the time, I only had 17, and I sent to Finishing Line Press. Yeah, it's a popular,
Yes,
the
my
very
chapbook
great.
was published by them.
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, congratulations. So that was my first book published, and then from MFA we have to have this, the all my teachers like were basically forcing us, saying one poem every day.
Whoa.
That's what you have to come up. No matter what kind of draft, you can do, revisioning, once a while, but you have to have this one poem
Yeah.
every night. So before you go to sleep,
Make it
we
happen.
might
Make it
encounter,
happen.
well, I have encountered sleepless nights, many of the sleepless nights, because my English level my first language is Chinese, and
Awesome.
then second language is Spanish. English is my third adopted language. So
That's incredible, Anne.
for me, it's kind of difficult to have a very great syntactical and grammar, all together. Even you can hear from my spoken English, here and there. So my writing is very, very difficult to
Right.
grasp the best syntax possible, and then to make sure all is in place. But I came to adopt automatic writing
Yeah.
from the earlier surrealist movement, in the 1920s, when if you go back to the historic, global artsy sphere, that was a surrealist movement right after Dadaism. They did something like, you just write, just keep writing.
Yeah.
It's a very constrained method, even though it sounds like free writing, but it's
Right.
not. Yeah, it's not a free writing. You just have a time period. You time your time like
Yeah.
1 hour, but you have to write everything on your like a longhand. So
Right.
that's how I came up with like trying to get my unconscious or subconscious onto the paper first, and
Yeah.
then go back to it in a more civil way, not so banal.
Right.
It's
Right. Right.
difficult to explain. I'm not
Oh,
a
it's
great.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
it's just like the method that we use. Think about
Ooh,
some sort of hypnotism involved.
I'm into it. I gotta try this. I think it's fascinating. I
I don't
can't
want to
wait
get
to
all.
like just
Great.
make the pen move, keep it going, like,
Yeah,
and to not
yeah.
edit yourself as you're writing. It's just moving.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're tired. And no, but first you don't have to constrain and restrain yourself at all. But then the first part, you just let everything. Even when you're super tired, you are like half asleep. Just write. even you're half asleep, your unconscious or subconscious can still write.
Yeah.
Trust me. So
That's cool.
when you're dozing off, you can still have your, even if your head is like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired, but your hand, if there's a residual element or energy from the day, you can still write. So you just keep writing, and then until you next morning you see, oh my God, I write a whole 2 pages of poem. What is that? And then you start to revision and to make it very constrained into some sort of.
And when you were doing this, or even now, did you ever, because you're in this, maybe half asleep state, did you ever start the poem, or write some of the poem, say in Chinese or even in Spanish, and then have to translate it, or would it come out in English?
In English all the time. Yeah, it's just very strange, because that's a great question, Chris. I'm glad you asked that question, because many VCFA's alumni ask them the same question, but it's always in English that came out first.
Interesting.
That's
That is so cool.
Yeah, even though I did many literal translations during school, we translate Pablo Neruda's, because my Spanish background, I translate from Neruda's 20 poems of love poems,
right,
and the Sound of the Desperate Sound. That I translate the whole book from Spanish to English, and then I translate a lot of Li Shangying, Wang Wei's poems. That's during the Tang dynasties. That's ancient classical Chinese poems into English as well. So I never do it revert. I can't do it from English to Chinese or English to Spanish.
Into English.
It's always
It's like
from
English is
other
the medium
main
of
languages
for you.
to the third language.
Sure.
That's
It's very
fascinating, and that is so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. BJ, so you're turning down the med school. You're not going there. You're going for poetry. How did you go from like deciding that you're going to pursue writing, and then how did you build your first manuscript and all of that?
Well, excuse me. I was lucky in the writing teachers I had at Wesleyan University. Tony Connor was there, Richard Wilbur was there, and so I had a couple of publications in small journals. I was writing a lot of more formal poetry at the time, the lyric that's still around, and then I went back to Wyoming and lived in Laramie, which is the university town, for a year, and they had a little lit magazine. And then I moved up to the ranch in Wyoming, and I lived for 37 years with no running water and no electricity. And no phone. And I have never had a television.
Oh my God.
So publication became a very interesting thing. I'd have to go to the library, and it was before the internet as well. So I had a lot of poet friends who were very gracious and would send copies of journals that they were getting. And of course you're too young, but Chris probably knows how long it takes to print journals used to take. Or you send poems away, and by a year and a half later they come back. It's like, what is that? Did I send that out?
What is it?
That still happens.
Who is a stamped envelope?
So we got a little creative. The newspaper would publish poems. The Rural Electric Cooperative magazine publishes poems. And so several, anywhere. And mostly I spent a lot of time not worrying very much about getting published and just writing. And then when I went back, I went to grad school at BU. And of course, then you have access to all those amazing libraries. Seamus Haney was at Harvard. Derek Walcott was teaching in the program, Tom Lux. And so a lot of the contacts there. So there was this brief sort of like efflorescence of poems getting published. And then I went back to the middle of nowhere again. And it was really the internet that made the connection very easy. And I had these piles and piles and piles of stuff. So then it became a question of editing. And actually the first book I did was a good part of it was the thesis I did at Boston. Yeah. There was a small publishing company in Wyoming, and I got a residency at the UCross Foundation. Anna, if you have not been there, you must apply. So I come to Wyoming and write at the UCross Foundation, also at the Gentel Foundation. Yes, get on the internet. And this little publishing, they had a little quarterly magazine, and I sent poems in there, and I got a letter back saying, "Do you have enough for a book? We'll do it." So that was the first. That was the first book, and that was how I met Dawn Senior, who is illustration. She did all the illustrations for that book and every one I've had since then. So that was a print one, and I feel like I'm a kid in a candy store now because there are so many journals and so many poets, and I don't know. I'm glad to see that print journals are still there, but I'm also glad to see that sense that if you didn't get in those, you weren't real.
Right. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you know that
Yes.
that thing. And so I read a lot of, when I get into the library, little journals online, and if I find a journal that has poems that I really like in it, then I submit there. And sometimes it has famous people in it, but most of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for poems that I really, really like. And so I feel like I've had this tremendous opportunity to people from different places and different cultures and different parts of the world. It's just a wonderful thing. And then the Comstock was a contest poem.
Nice.
The Crow book, the Corvidae poems. I had some friends who live in California who I went to college with, and I had been sending these very odd and quirky and somewhat morbid, because crows and ravens dead things, and so and you see a lot of them out here,
Right.
to my friend. And he had a friend who lived in Venice, who was a Rain Dog, the poet Rain Dog, who had a little publishing company, and he said Rain Dog would really like these, and I said okay. And then I get an email from Rain Dog, and he says, "Do you have enough for a book?" And I didn't. Serendipitous. And I said, I didn't at the time. And he said, well, how damn long is it going to take you? And I said, 6 more months. So he said, okay. And I said, and it has to have illustrations. And he said, black and white.
Okay.
So my friend Dawn did woodcuts for the inside and a color woodcut for the cover. So that's how and then the Little Moon Horses book, there was a little publishing company in Wyoming that was doing a Women and Words series of putting 2 writers together, 2 poets or 2 fiction writers, for this little series. And I had met her at a conference, and she said, I'd love to have them. Who else should be in the book with you? And I said, oh, my friend Dawn, who is another Renaissance person like Anna, and who does, bronzes and painting and children's books and everything else. So that one came about. And that one's an interesting book. The lady said, she said, you can either each have a section, or you can let me arrange the poems so they talk to each other. And I said, oh, do that. And so that, which is out of print, although copies float around here and there, has the poems in and out. And it was really, and she said, and I'm not showing it to you till it's done. And I said, okay. So that was really amazing what happened with that book, because she's an amazing editor, and she spent a lot of time figuring out. So it almost comes out, if you didn't know 2 people wrote it, it has this flow. It's very nice.
That is so cool. BJ, I mean, and BJ, you both have these like incredible stories, and all of these rich ways that you are just living through poetry and just writing and publishing.
Right.
It's just such a richness of experience and poetry life. We have a famous last double question, which we have to ask both of you. Chris, take it away.
Sure. So, and first one is, we'll just ask for a pearl of wisdom, a bit of advice that you've picked up along the way for writers out there. And then part 2 is a book recommendation.
Could you repeat the first question, Chris? I missed that.
No, a pearl of wisdom, just a bit of advice for writers out there, something for them to think about when they're starting out, or
to have fun whenever in whatever they want to do. I mean, number one is always having fun. If you like to write, go ahead. If you feel like you are stuck, get some fun events before, some gigs, anything, go open mic, there are so many virtual open mics everywhere, and get inspired by other readers. Once you feel you are like, sometimes, writer's block, we poets, like, we encounter writer's block I would say every other minute. to be true to myself, because you just need nourishment from other writers,
Right.
and not only from reading, but also you need to some connection with the human being. You are writing, I see us as a architect of humanity. We write, we want to understand people better, we kind of like understand ourselves better in the process, and then that's how we build the solidarity, the community. But then if you don't have people around you, how do you do that, right? You
Right.
need to understand better. So just have fun, and then get to know everybody, all kinds of people, and then be understanding of them, and then try to love them if you can,
Love it.
and then write. And
Yes.
that's my
Okay.
number one. Number two, you said some book that I recommend.
Anne has it at the ready. Perfect.
Yes, because oh my gosh, can you see the book
No,
title? Richie Hoffman's
100
100 Lovers.
Yes.
So he is this. So Richie Hoffman is the one writer and poet that I worked with, workshopped lately, just recently, very recently, by in the Kenyon Review. They have a very special program, and then he usually doesn't teach anywhere. But then this is such a serendipitous encounter, like the BJ, like was there in Jane
Yeah.
Valentine in the same room, and now we are talking about poetry and everything. And his work is gorgeous. His work is so authentic. He has a strong voice. He is so raw, and I'm just like smitten by all his work. I'm trying to figure out. So his first work was another book. I just can't remember. I think, here it is, The Second Empire, because I was trying to digest this book, first book, if you can see.
Richie
Yeah.
Hoffman.
Second Empire by Richie Hoffman. So it's Richie is
He's a formalist. He writes in form?
Chie Hoffman.
Yes, yes.
Hoffmann. So Second Empire is his first book. I think he won this book won the Ruth Lilly Prize, which is outstanding. And then his second book, I haven't started, but I had a glimpse of it, 100 Lovers, and then there's so many buzz on it. If BJ, we definitely want to stay in touch after this.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we can have this like a book club for Richie Hoffman's Second Empire.
We'll mail it to each other.
Yes, and then with Chris and Katie, we can all do that, because there's so many things that
nice.
I'm trying to make sense of, and it's so pure, in the sense of pure lyricism. If you like a lyric lyrical poetry like mine or BJ's, I think BJ's is very lyrical too. Yeah. I heard so many snow scenery, and then raven. It's just very, very powerful. I mean, it's very lyrical. But it's also prose poem style. But I think you will love it. You will love his work. Yeah.
Okay. And what's the title? What was the title, Anne?
That one's called.
His first book is Second Empire.
Second Empire. Okay.
Yeah.
The other one is 100 Lovers.
100 Lovers. Yes.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that awesome advice and that fabulous recommendation. I'm pumped. I'm excited. BJ, a pearl of wisdom, a piece of advice for writers, and a book recommendation.
Anna talked about writing every day, and I made a vow to write something every day, even if it's only the grocery list.
Yeah.
So, and I have been very lucky. I have a poet, wonderful poet, who also publishes through Finishing Line Press. Her name is Jane Wall, W-O-H-L, And she and I have written poems during Lent as our Lenten practice, although they're not religious poems. It's just we have to do something for about 4 years now, 40 poems. And then in different parts of the year. And then she's in her community, they do artists do stuff every day for a month to raise money for their refugee resettlement project. So
Awesome.
some years it has been 70 poems back and forth. So you have to have it done. You cannot disappoint your partner. And so those are efforts to actually be, if only a 3 or 4 line, an actual poem. But the rest of it is just, if I haven't written something before I go to sleep, I sit there in the dark. I have a pen with a flashlight that one of my little students gave to me
Oh my God.
years and years and years ago. I live in fear of it breaking because it has a little light on it, and it's just right on the page so that I can get my stuff done. But yeah, write every day. And then
Awesome.
I'm going to give you a Montana poet. Her name is Melissa Kwasny, Kwasny.
Nice.
And her 2 books, let me see if I can find her newest one. Oh my goodness. Her latest, well, she's got nonfiction books as well, but her latest book of poetry is called Where Outside the Body is the Soul Today.
Ooh, what an awesome title.
Where Outside the Body is the Soul Today. And she has a book from 2011 called The 9 Senses.
Cool.
And one from a couple years called Reading Novalis in Montana.
Nice. Nice. Oh, BJ, thank you so much. Another piece of awesome advice, and so great to hear both of you talking about like getting that writing in, like writing right before you go to bed. Even I'm so inspired right now by both of you, by the stories you've shared and the commitment to poetry, the passion for poetry that both of you have. I just want to thank both of you for joining us this evening. One more round of applause for Anne Huang and BJ Buckley. Incredible readings, and so awesome to get to hear your stories and everything that you share with us. Thank you so much to our really, really wonderful audience on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter out there, people who are watching live, people who are watching later. It means so much to us that you tune in. Yes, please, everybody have a great evening and come back next week for...
Oh, yes, that's right. Next week, we have KJ Michike and Shabari Ahmed. Ahmed. Right. No, what I'm thinking is like, I'm everybody has to write a poem tonight before.
I know. Chris is already thinking about his poem. He's already like at his journal.
That's where my head is at. I'm thinking, okay.
I know. I'm inspired. I'm excited. I really, really enjoyed both of you so much. Thank you so much, Anne. Thank you so much, BJ.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank
Really
you.
enjoyed everything. Thank you. Take care.